So it always kind of I pride myself in the fact that this show is 1 degree from a bunch of big name shows. Uh, for example, Joe Rogan, Coast to Coast, Ancient Aliens. I've had Preston Dennett was on Coast to Coast. Rich Hoffman was on Ancient Aliens. Preston Dennett was also on Ancient Aliens. And this is tonight's guest, Reverend Michael Carter. No different. Ancient Aliens, Coast to Coast. He's ran the gambit. So let's get ready to bring him in. But before we do, thanks for watching the Caffeinated Cryptid. And please subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. And all ways to follow and listen on the iTunes and the Spotify apps are on BobbyDizzle.com. So without further ado, let's bring Reverend Michael J.S. Carter into the chat.
Hey, brother.
How you doing? So,
all right, man. I was looking forward to this.
The good Reverend is a longtime UFO contactee.
Yes.
Best-selling author, ordained minister, and has appeared on many of the best-known TV shows and docuseries, like I just said, Coast to Coast, Ancient Aliens, with George Noory, nonetheless, the old school Ancient Aliens, or not old school Coast to Coast.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And your book, Alien Scripture, Extraterrestrial, and the Holy Bible, was touted as one of the best ever written on the subject. And those can be found on Amazon.com, and your website's in the description. So I found everything in the world about you as far as your ministry.
Yeah.
And I passed through your town you live in now not too long ago, not too far from you. And about your books and everything.
Where were you?
Oh, I went to the Outer Banks. I live in Alabama.
Oh, okay.
So we stayed a night in Nashville.
You should have gave me a holler.
We stayed a night in Nashville.
Yeah.
So let me hear about this UFO contactee. Everything else was so out there, but I haven't heard anything about. I couldn't find anything except Ancient Aliens show about your UFO contacts. I want to hear about those. How did that happen?
Well, yeah, back December 28th, 1989 was when it started for me. I have someone make all the beings that I've seen. Mm-hmm. Her name is Carol McLeod. She lives in Nevada. She's an artist. So she made, this was the first person I saw. Yeah, back in December 28, 1989, I had come back from the pyramids. Well, came back from vacation and at the pyramids at Chichen Itza in Tulum, and came back home. My girlfriend at the time, she stayed home. I went to a get-together. When we got back to JFK, it was freezing. We had a wonderful time. I had never, it was new to me, the Mayan pyramids and, all this stuff about astronomy and this technology and what have you. And when I came back home that night, that being was at the foot of my bed. My girlfriend at the time didn't wake up, and she remembers it clearly now. And I was scared to death. About 4 feet tall, this kind of skin, chalky white, not gray, but chalky white. Had on a jumpsuit though. I just had her make this into a Buddha. But he had on, it looked like Reynolds wrap, and it had a collar, and he was real thin. I guess it was a he. And I pulled the covers up over my head, and I was just scared to death. And I heard this sound like I was, like the wind was in my house, like whoosh. And then I felt like I was outside. I was living in Manhattan on the Upper West Side in a hotel that's still there called the Excelsior Hotel between Columbus Avenue and Central Park West. And I finally grew a pair, and when I pulled the covers down, nobody was there. She was just waking up, and they started to visit me every full and new moon. So it was twice a month for about 8 months to a year. They never really talked to me. They would show me pictures in my head, one of a past life, one of a future life, something had happened in my life. And it just went on from there. My whole life changed. Obviously, my religious beliefs changed. And then I started seeing other beings, like I saw this reptilian person twice. Then I later on in 2019, and this was going on for years with them, but then a couple of years went by. Then in 2019, I saw this praying mantis person. In 2013, I had a blood clot, and Preston, I call Preston. Well, that's another story, but he put me in his second book on UFO healings. But
Okay, I
this,
was going to ask you if you've talked to him or not. It sounds like some of
yeah, this
his
guy
reports.
came along, this Nordic person, and he healed a blood clot that I had in my leg. So this is over a period of time. And then there were years would go by when I wouldn't see him at all, or they would, they would come to me in my dreams or when I meditated. And it's been quite the journey.
So you have talked to Preston, and he's good people.
Preston is great people. We were supposed to do a conference next month together in Michigan, but he had to back out. Um, and we've done a couple podcasts together. But yeah, he's great people.
And he was one of the first ones I talked to. I was like, really, just as deep as he went. Almost as deep as you're going now. Well,
Yeah,
obviously deeper because he goes hard in the paint with him and Dolly.
yeah,
Like I was just thinking I was going to hear like a cool story like the kind you hear on TV. I'm like, no, this dude went all the way off.
yeah. No,
Good stuff.
Preston, he's got quite a story. He's got quite
Mm-hmm.
a story, and he's got a new book out,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, he's the real deal.
So I was mentioning in the bio there your book, the extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible,
Yes,
the alien scripture. I
yeah,
had to
that's the
type it.
long title. It's called Alien Scriptures, Extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible. In 2014, it made me feel good. It was on Amazon. It was one of their bestsellers in 2014. Whitley Strieber he told me he was being very gracious. He said it's the best book ever written on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's true, but I'll take it. And I used this
Yeah.
I used this quote on my book. But he's
Say a
another.
win's a win.
Yeah, he's a good man too.
So what do you? I take a lot of comfort in maybe some of the Bible is aliens.
Oh, some of it.
Like, yeah,
Oh my God, the whole thing is.
I was being generous.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I like that fact because I don't think that the existence of aliens negates the Bible at all,
Not at
and
all.
I think it almost makes it better.
No, not at all. Not at all, Bobby. As a matter of fact, um, I'll be talking a little more about this at the in Michigan. But yeah, I mean, I've started to go back and reread it, and you know, I look at it so much different now. I don't remember all the Greek and the Hebrew that I learned in seminary.
Mm-hmm.
You don't use it, you lose it. But I'm still convinced that everywhere in the Old Testament, if when you see the word Lord or God, if you put Elohim there, it makes perfect sense. And uh, but back in the 6th century, King Josiah, who started ruling when he was 8 years old, he died at the age of 39 in a battle with the Egyptians. He
Mm-hmm.
started these reforms, and he started tearing down all the altars and temples dedicated to the other gods that weren't Yahweh. And he later started rewriting the scriptures. And so he took everything because the Jewish people were worshiping other gods. But but they were ETs. They were worshiping
Mm-hmm.
Asherah, who taught them how to agriculture and how to build cities and sanitation and all that. They worship Baal. They worship Beelzebub. And what King Josiah did was he went through and he made it Yahweh is the only God. And if you were worshiping any other god, et, then you were an enemy of the state. And he did all this in the 6th and 7th century BCE. So, and to this day, when we look at God, we say God, but they're talking about Yahweh. Some of the things that Yahweh did, genocide, having them kill men, women, and children. You don't want to worship a God like that, a judgmental God, a jealous God. And to this day, people are worshiping Yahweh, thinking that they're worshiping the transcendent intelligence and energy of the universe, and they're actually worshiping an extraterrestrial.
It is odd that the Old Testament and the New Testament seem like a different God entirely.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like
Exactly.
it's like they seems like a showrunner change, like in The Walking Dead season 1.
Yeah.
Like what happened? Why is this like a different show?
Yes, you could make the argument, and I try to, that Jesus is talking about a totally different being than Yahweh. And so here we have, and they carved up, these extraterrestrials carved up different parts of the planet. You have in India, you have the blue skin people. Maybe they were from Andromeda, I don't know, but they were blue. So there was a race there. You had these different gods in Mesopotamia, in Sumeria, which is where Genesis gets their creation story from. So it was all these extraterrestrials, some friendly, some not, involved on the earth, involved probably in creating us. And so we've mistaken that because of Josiah's reforms, because he airbrushed that. So there would be one God, which would be Yahweh. There'd be one high priest. There'd be one king, which would be him. And there would be one temple, which would be in Jerusalem. And so everybody else was airbrushed out. And so here we are now just, finding this out and discovering or rediscovering that the Old Testament, as well as the New, but definitely the Old Testament, is a story of these beings, our ancestors, trying to tell us what was going on when they were running up against these intelligences.
So what do you like? Do you preach in your church as far as Christianity goes? Is it Christian?
We have Christians in the church. No,
I'm
Unitarian
assuming.
Universalism. We have now we have UU Christian churches. No, it's not, you didn't know,
Yeah.
but no, we do. But the church that I serve, we have Christians, we have atheists, we have Buddhists, they all come. I don't preach a UFO theology because that's not what I'm there for, and that's not what I'm about in that sense of the word. But I use the Bible. I can use the Buddhist scriptures. I can use the New York Times. Wherever I get my ideas from. I could read a novel and write a sermon on what I wrote. I just try to make the stories relevant to today. I think a lot of people, I know a lot of people are leaving churches in droves. My church seems to be growing, but I think a lot of people are leaving churches because they're like, what do these stories have to do today with all this judgmentalism and all this hate and, I'm saved and you're not? It's turning people away. There's a consciousness change. And unless churches change with them, it's going to be bad.
Now, you've obviously read all the main books from the major religions, your Buddhists, your Hindus.
Yes.
Have you noticed similarities that in all of them that might?
Yeah. The similarities are, and Buddhism, for instance, is more of a philosophy than a religion. But whether it's Hinduism, whether reading the Vedas or the Upanishads, whether it's Islam or the three monotheistic religions, Native American spirituality, they're all stories about beings who came down from other worlds, other planets, and some of them were allies of humanity, trying to get us to show us how to live, how to not be so barbaric, how to learn ethics, how to astronomy, astrology, philosophy. And then there were some ETs who came to use us when they were having wars with each other, which you see in the Old Testament. And so if I live in Palestine and I'm worshiping Yahweh, and let's say you live somewhere else, I would be fighting for my God and you'd be fighting for yours. Maybe your God was Baal, or maybe your goddess was Asherah. And so humanity got caught up in the crossfire and mistakenly thinking that these beings, obviously because of their technology, because they're all powerful, mistaking them for God. And here we have that going on today. But in answer to your question, Um, the similarities are that there are guidelines there in how to live an ethical life,
Mm-hmm.
how to live a good life, how to how to become a good human being without having to have these beings rule over you. That's what I'm getting, especially when I go back and read the Old Testament. So those are the similarities. These gods, whether you're talking about the Greek gods, they commit adultery, they drink wine, they get drunk, they
Mm-hmm.
fuss, they fight. They're like us. They just have more technology, and some of them have a little more spirituality and wisdom.
Yeah, and like Dionysus getting hammered all the time. The
Oh, you look at the Greek gods.
yeah.
I mean, they're drinking, and having orgies and carrying on. Uh, but I believe that they're talking about extraterrestrials, but they have the same foibles. Are there high level beings? Of course they are. Jesus was one of them, or Jesus was in touch with them. That there's a way to live life where you're not denigrating each other, where you're not denigrating yourself. You learn to love, and as he would put it, and other people would put it. And those are the similarities. We know the differences. You may call
Mm-hmm.
God Allah. Someone may call it the Great Spirit. Someone may call it Jehovah. So those are not big differences, even though we fight and kill each other over it. But
Oh yeah.
basically, there's a blueprint on how to live a good life, how to live a life of authenticity, of forgiveness, of love. Those are the similarities. Every religion has some of those teachings.
Mm-hmm.
Any genuine spiritual path has those teachings in it.
What's interesting about the Greek ones is that they just all happen to live on a giant mountain just outside of town.
Mount Olympus.
Yeah, that they can come down on. It's like that Richard Dreyfuss movie at the Devil's Peak.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah,
all just
yeah,
came down
yeah,
there.
yeah. And Yahweh is the God of the mountain. Moses goes up on the mountain.
Yep.
When Jesus tries to get away from the crowds, he goes up into the mountains to pray. So it's something about mountains and what's sacred and where to go for refuge.
Sounds like Jesus was just a deer hunter. Go up in the mountains and pray. Sounds like
I
what he should
mean,
do in the
that's
winter.
that's what we were told he's doing. Who knows?
Yeah.
He could have been meeting some people on a ship somewhere. But he gets away. You got to get away. You got to recharge. You got to,
Mm-hmm.
for the mission, whatever. If it's your mission, my mission, his mission, it's good to be able to be alone, to be with you and your God or whoever you need to be with to recharge and then to press on.
Oh yeah. And speaking of I'll say speaking of man like aliens, the Nordic being you had,
Yeah.
is that anything connected to the large whites that were the great what they call tall
Sometimes it's
whites
used, the tall whites.
from the
Sometimes
desert?
it's used interchangeably. Um, uh, because they're both very humanoid looking. And the brother I saw who healed my blood clot was very, 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 very pale, but he had blonde hair, very built,
Mm-hmm.
brother. I think that sometimes it's used. Who was the guy who wrote what is the book? Something hospitality, millennial hospitality. He was a serviceman, and
Mm-hmm.
he worked with the tall whites
Yeah,
out in
that's
Nevada.
my next question. What do you think about him? His name is Charles or something.
Yes, yes, Charles.
I love
I
that story.
listen. I don't think he has. I think he's genuine. I don't think he would have any reason to lie. I don't think because what do you gain from lying about this stuff? If anything, you lose. Your pension. You
Mm-hmm.
got a family, that kind of thing. So no, I think it's wonderful that these people have come forth.
And didn't in one part of that story there was a part where he was healed just with the finger or that little instrument they had. If I remember
I don't
correctly,
remember that
he
part, but
got
I'm
cut or
sure.
something real bad. Yeah.
Because remember, he wrote a book about being with the Greys, which I read, and the Tall Whites. And they have families, man. They have families
Mm-hmm.
and children and that kind of thing.
Elders.
So yeah,
And it started off as the ghost of Range 57.
Right.
and they thought it was a ghost horse. It was a large white. I keep
Yeah.
calling them large white like they're a
It's a
pig.
tall white. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a breed of pig. The
Yeah.
tall, the large whites, the big pink ones. No, not the same. Yeah, there's a podcast called Last Podcast on the Left. You've probably heard of it. Real good. They're a documentary kind of
Uh-huh.
comedians kind of thing, but they did one on that the tall whites, that man and his documentary that I watched it, and so I kind of went deep on that for a while. It's really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. I forget his last name. It was Charles something, but
I'll look it up.
I think he was in the Air Force
Mm-hmm.
and he was stationed out west, and he had lots of interactions with these beings, which must have been fascinating. And he said they were scary at first, not so much, just that some of them had bad temperaments, and they could hurt you if you got on the wrong side of them. But
I
in that
imagine
way,
so.
they're much like us.
Here we go. Yeah, it's Charles James Hall.
Yes, Charles Hall.
I'll post it up here for the
Yeah,
viewers at home that want to watch it. It's pretty interesting. I think it's on like Netflix and Tubi.
I think it's on Tubi, but yeah, the books are pretty good as well. There he is. The books are pretty good as well.
I watched it. If it's one of those, it's like a,
There
it's
he
kind
is.
of it's kind of a dull, it's kind of a dull kind of documentary because it's just him talking for about an hour.
Yeah.
But it's a good lead in if you want to watch that, and then like Graham Hancock and his new one. Preston just texted me. Said, "Yeah, I know him. Nice guy." Got hobnobbing up in here.
Yeah.
Do you know Do you know Rich Hoffman from
No, I
Huntsville?
don't.
He was on Ancient Aliens. He's a MUFON guy. I'm kind of a coworker with him. He hired me about 10 years ago for my second job out of college, and
Hmm.
I come to find out he's a MUFON. He's been on Ancient Aliens.
Wow.
He's from the Dayton area. He's a Rat Pat, but
Dayton,
Rat Pat.
Ohio. Yeah.
Yeah, but he lives here in Huntsville with me, or close, not with me, but close to me. And we have a nice studio apartment, me and Rich. So I started getting into this. I'm like, man, I can just talk about this all day.
Well, a lot of people are, and especially with the hearings that we've just had, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's
What do you
not
think
going to
about
go
those?
away. Huh?
What do you think about those hearings? The
I think
biologics.
I think they were history making. I never thought I'd see my government, even though they're not as transparent as we would be. Put it like this: when I talked about this 20, 25 years ago, people told me to stand down, to shut
Mm-hmm.
up. What kind of minister are you? Yada yada yada. Now, it's on mainstream news. It's in publications. The conversation's going on. So timing is everything. But I think that there's more to come. Obviously, I think that our government will probably try and keep things a secret as long as they possibly can, and by that time they can have maybe maybe an explanation. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying it would be the truth, but if it's now it's a timing thing.
I'm really hoping they don't go with the blue beam thing. That just seems kind of corny.
It could happen, man.
Yeah, and they could do it pretty easy.
It could happen.
As much as a hook, line, and sinker everybody is, they realize everybody's pretty gullible.
No, it could happen. And remember what Werner von Braun told Carol Rosin, that the last card played would be the extraterrestrial card, and it would be a fake invasion, and it would be all based on a lie. We would be told that these beings are an enemy, that they are a threat, and it would all be based on a lie, and that can happen.
He lived just a few miles from where I'm at right now.
Did he really?
Von Braun. Yeah, I'm in Huntsville. I go to his base every day. It's one of my. That's kind of the kind of podcast I do. It's kind of ironic that I go to the paperclip base.
Yeah.
I see stuff on the ride in. I'm seeing shit. I'm like, that was built by Nazis. That's a Nazi thing. That's Nazi.
Yeah,
they tear down all the Confederate statues and drive by a complex built by a Nazi, and it's hilarious.
Yeah,
the irony is not lost.
Yeah. But he came over with some other people in Operation Paperclip.
It's fascinating too. They got his office here in a museum.
Oh, I'm sure.
It has the is it the V2, the A2, the one he
V2,
fired? Yeah, V2, the
those
one he
V2
fired at
rockets.
London.
Oh yeah.
They got
Well,
the
he
models of
came out
those.
and said, and I forget who his mentor was. It begins with an O, another German man,
Hmm.
that they had help from beings from other worlds. The Third Reich did.
Hmm.
That they
They
were
had
experimenting
the
with this
bell thing.
technology. Yeah.
That doesn't
It's,
shock me. They were trying to make a deal with the devil. They didn't care.
yeah.
They were going for broke.
Yes. And they almost did it.
That's why we're here 100 years later, and it's the most fascinating subject. When you start on it, you could be amongst a bunch of old ladies talking about knitting and bring up, "Would you kill baby Hitler?" and it just go down a rabbit hole, the likes of which you've never seen.
Well, I tell you, when I watch these World War II
Hmm.
documentaries, I look at them very, very different now. Because some of these people, obviously there were top secret missions and
Hmm.
things like that, but a lot of them knew about this technology, about the Foo Fighters and
Yep.
these crash retrievals, even back in the 30s. So it makes me look at some of the historical stuff in a different way. Certainly now, because these deals that have probably been made between other nations and these other civilizations, and it makes me see, oh, maybe this is where all this money is going for these black projects and for this government within a government that has no oversight at all, and where all this money is going for defense. I try to connect the dots that way. It's all
Yeah.
speculation, but you never know.
I kind of think the cattle mutilation is like that too. The one in
Mm-hmm.
Skinwalker Ranch.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's defense. The mill labs, as Preston calls them.
Mm-hmm.
We've
Well,
been having
I
a lot
think
of.
we're at a point now. It seems that it's when you see these things in the sky, the question is not whether it's a UAP or a UFO. The question is it ours or is it theirs?
Yeah,
That's the question.
that's it
They're
is.
all
It's
identified now.
seriously
Yeah,
seriously is the Tic Tac.
yeah,
I
yeah.
want the Tic
Are
Tac to
those
be
ours?
extraterrestrial.
Yeah, come on.
I want it to be extraterrestrial so bad, but it's not. It's a drone that we've made, and we can. If China was to pop off, we would just destroy them, bring them out of nowhere. But I want it to be an ET because it went into the water.
Well, the thing is that we do know that there are other worlds visiting us. So
Hmm.
maybe the Tic Tacs may not be, but we know they're out there and they've been seen. So I mean, the cat's out of the bag. You can't put the genie back in the bottle.
Yeah, there was the one that went by the airplane about 3 months ago. That was a cool one.
Well, I like we just mentioned, this has been going on for 70, 80 years.
Yeah, the Foo Fighters was
And,
probably the same thing.
and yeah, that's what I'm saying. And so, and
Yeah.
they flew right over Washington. So in
Hmm.
1952. So we have historical amnesia. This is really not new. What is new is that we have the capabilities, the technology to maybe
Hmm.
replicate some of this, to back engineer some of the stuff. But you just say, okay, I saw something. I just don't know whether it belonged to us or whether it belonged to them.
Yep. Or even at the abductions, was it us or them?
One could argue that as well.
Yeah.
One could argue that. I know some people who say that they've been taken, but it was they later found out, or they found out at the time that there was the military behind it. So I don't think that happened to me, but it must be a shock to have that happen.
Hmm. I'd be so mad. You get abducted, and all of a sudden you wake up and there's people. What? You just asked. I take a physical once a year anyway.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah, that whole subject matter is wild because and where do you lean into the spirit? I was going to ask about Bigfoots and where do you think they reside in the alien hierarchy as far as authenticity?
Well, I believe they exist, and I
Yeah.
don't know much about them, but I do. I have friends who are really heavy into it. And, it's what's interesting to me is that there have been many sightings of Bigfoot, but uh, also UFO sightings with them.
Hmm.
So one thing I've learned was, especially with this phenomenon, that anything is possible. I really mean that anything is possible. This
Hmm.
phenomenon, you're dealing with such high strangeness, and it shatters your reality or what you think is real, and you get to realize that I don't know anything about the universe, about what reality really is, and so I just I I'm just open. I can never say to someone, "Oh, come on, that didn't happen to you,"
Yeah.
or that you can't. Not after you've had these experiences, and it doesn't have to be UFO experiences. It's near death
Hmm.
experiences. Um, you know what I mean? It could be out of body experiences, which Preston does a lot. It
Yep.
just shatters this three-dimensional Newtonian physics, and here we are dealing with beings who probably have 32nd century technology, and we're trying to figure it out with 21st century physics. It just doesn't work. So we
Yeah.
have
Heaven
to start
forbid.
changing the whole way we look at life, the whole way we look at which quantum theory is helping us do.
I think that
It's going to affect religion and
yeah,
everything else.
I think that that show Skinwalker Ranch, even though it is Hollywood, I think that it's kind of given the instruction manual on how that stuff kind of works. A lot of the stuff they're seeing out there, the
Mhm.
way it can manipulate electronics, it's almost like a baseline knowledge of how it all. Even though it's kind of trumped up a little bit, but a lot of the way
Yeah.
they see things.
Well, and yeah, and it has to be for TV.
Yeah.
But in some ways it doesn't have to be. This phenomenon is so sensational anyway. You don't have to dress it up. Just give it to us straight, because it's just mind bending. At least I
Hmm.
find it is. I just If anybody tells me they have all the answers, of course I never believe them, because
The
there's
experts.
always more questions than answers. Yes, um, but it's changed my life, and it's for the better, I would say. Even though, I still have some PSD from it, but um,
Hmm.
it's changed my life for the better. And I work on myself. I meditate. I try to live a good life and love my fellow human beings, and so that's really all you can ask.
When you held on that same note, when you held that model of the lizard person, the first one,
Oh yeah, the reptilian
yeah,
dreams.
there's a fella. His name's Zeus Pratt from Colorado. He goes can track Sasquatch out there. Kind of got kind of a mental connection to him. He spotted one. He spotted a lizard person in the woods of Colorado looked just like that. Said it just appeared, put his hand over its face, and disappeared.
Yeah, yeah. The
That
the
same
one
look.
the one I saw walked in my bedroom. He had a tail, and it was a he. He spoke, but his mouth didn't move. It was telepathic,
Mm,
and his eyes. Looking back, they were beautiful. And then I thought I was going to break down. I mean, it's just it's shatters your whole reality. But his eyes were like a cat's. The pupil went. What is
hmm.
that? Vertical. Yeah, that's horizontal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were yellow, and he was big. I mean, huge muscles. Had on like I call it a wife beater, a tank top.
Hmm.
Told me not to be afraid, which was easy for him to say.
Yeah.
What
Thanks,
I
giant
did
lizard
get
man.
from that, yeah, it's easy for you to say that, but what I did get from that, and he touched me, so I know it was real. I wasn't asleep. But I got to tell you, I, yeah, I don't. Nothing untoward happened to me. Um, And it made me think, because there's some people who say they're reptilians, they're automatically bad,
Hmm.
evil. Um, yes, every ancient civilization has made reference to them. Some people say Yahweh was a dragon, which comes to mind to me as reptilian. It's just so much life out there in the cosmos.
And it's
And
huge.
oh Lord, it's unfathomable. And so what do you do with it? uh, uh, you know, how How do you live your life? For people who are experiencers, I think that was the big thing. How do I live my life now? I can't go back. I can't make pretend this never happened. And yes, there are some people who had terrible things happen. And I'm talking about anal probes,
Mm-hmm.
sperm and ovum, traumatic. So I'm not saying all these beings want to sing
Barney
magic
Hill.
and kumbaya. Yeah, but if you met some of these people and you felt that it was a good thing altogether, maybe you were afraid and some bumps in the road, but if you say the experience made me, it changed me, it transformed me, then you have to say, okay, now how do I live my life now that I've experienced this? How do I treat my fellow human beings? And
Mm-hmm.
and that is where the rubber meets the road, as far as I'm concerned.
I always ask everyone that has, regular experiences, be it with ghosts or Bigfoot or anything, or
Yeah,
especially in
yeah.
aliens,
Any
like how in the
paranormal.
world do you go to work at 7 a.m. knowing that shit is out there? That's
Well,
just hard.
listen, you know, and I this is a simple answer, but okay, let's say tonight I have a visit. Okay, I have a visit. Usually when I have them, I can't go back to sleep. I'm so
Yeah,
hyped up.
imagine so.
I got to go to work tomorrow. I got bills to pay. My daughter has to. I'm having dinner with my daughter and my wife tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You like who wrote the road less traveled? Anyway, life goes on. Those are the three words
Yeah,
that it doesn't matter. Life goes on, and you have to do what you have to do and
M. Scott Peck.
continue. But you also know that what I'm seeing is much more deep. This whatever it is, it's deeper than what the average person knows. But you still have to live your life. You still have to pay your bills. You still have to
Yeah,
support your family. You still have you have to do what you have to do.
it's really. I guess in reality, once the adrenaline dump happens, it's really no more worse on you the next day than when the kid cries all night. You still the kid gets sick at
Well,
night.
I don't. I mean, I've had both of those.
Yeah.
I listen. I I have a hard time being alone um, by myself uh, because of the visits.
Mm-hmm.
I still do, and but I'm going to do it. Like my wife may go out of town this weekend. My daughter will be with me till Saturday night, and then she has her own life. And um, for me, it's just the suddenness of it. I can be looking over here in bed, not asleep, and I can turn around and bam, they're there. It's and then the look, because some of them look kind of bizarre. For me, my nervous system is screwed up because of that. It's like being hyper vigilant. Um, but you go on. You go to therapy, or maybe you go have a drink. I don't know, but you got to go on with your life. And remember, we were just talking about the Bible, and back during these times, these people went through it as well. Probably more so than we do, because these people were living on the planet then.
Yeah.
And so, our ancestors had to do it. We have to do it. You can if you want, but you just don't drop off the grid.
Yeah. A little rougher nowadays than it might have been back then when off the grid was life.
Well, yeah, you were
Yeah.
always off the grid, weren't you, in some
There was no
ways?
grid.
Yeah.
Yeah, the I've always wondered about the why back in the day everybody talked to God. Like I heard the voice from the heavens, and that hasn't happened since anybody started recording anything. And maybe it has, and that's just what it was.
Well, back
Is
then
it,
you could say you talked to God and people may believe you. Now they'll lock you up.
yeah.
Um, uh, so life is obviously a little different. Um, but I think that's what the whole phenomenon is about. It's about not so much tech, which is sexy, and
Hmm.
it's the technology is mind blowing. But just because you have tech doesn't mean you have spirituality. Now, some of these beings do. Some of them have known how to balance, have been coming from a highly technological civilization and balance the spirituality. We haven't yet. We got technology that we haven't even disclosed to people yet, and but we could blow ourselves up with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this UFO phenomenon is about the change of consciousness, that we become more in tune with ourselves and each other and the cosmos around us. But that takes time. So for me, that's what I think it's about, because all these warnings you get from these brothers and sisters who come here, look, you're screwing up the planet. Look, you're too warlike. What are you doing? They're trying to tell us if you want to keep on getting what you're getting, keep on doing what you're doing. That's a change in consciousness. Because the same technology that we worship, because the new religion now is the religion of technology.
Yep.
It will destroy us because we don't have yet to my mind, we don't have the spiritual maturity. Every time we get some technology, what do we do with it? We make bombs out of it.
Yeah.
We find a way to kill each other. So it's concerning, to say the least.
We even use social media as like a mental weapon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think we're in our adolescent phase of it. I think we'll come out of it eventually if we don't all die first.
Well, that's always the big deal. Yeah. But again, reading literature, we have. That's what Admiral Byrd said. Yes. See, your audience is very astute.
Hey, they're fired up tonight. I'm gonna start waiting until 9 o'clock every time.
They
they're on fire. Like I found a sweet spot.
But planets have destroyed themselves. If you talk to some Palladians, or you talk to they will say, we were on the same course you were on. We blew ourselves up, and we don't want to see you do it. Or when you do it, when we split the atom over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, UFO sightings increased. Well, because when you split the atom, you affect different dimensions, different worlds, and so it's like having a dangerous neighbor down the block playing with guns.
Yeah, you hear like a gunshot down the block and somebody's on meth or something.
You have to go, what's going on down there? Well, they just split an atom twice over a civilian city. We need to check these people out.
Ricky's on meth again. I'm from North Alabama, so I know the equivalent. Yeah, that's got to seem wild. I wonder, like, there's no way of knowing, but how many times that's happened in the past? Like these eonic beings that are like transcend time. And if they get like that little warning on their dashboard, oh God, another monkey detonated an atom. And they got to send out like the equivalent of Starship Troopers down there to survey them to make sure they don't do it.
Oh my God, you're taking me back, Starship Troopers. Yeah, so here we are in August 2023, and there's a lot of ways that we can be taken out. There could be an asteroid. There's obviously the climate change. Whether you believe it's human made or not, it's here. Or, we could just blow ourselves up.
Yep.
So, or here's a thought: we could learn to get along. What a concept!
That'd be nice.
I wouldn't mind it.
Yep. And if you take away all the technology, we do kind of get along. Like people out in town and everything, we're just kind of hanging out.
Yeah.
You turn on the news, everybody's killing each other.
I think people want to get along. I think sometimes it's our leaders.
Yeah, well,
who don't.
That goes without saying. Those elites.
It's it'll be interesting to see what direction we go in. But even saying all that, in some ways, it doesn't matter what direction we go in collectively. What really matters is how we individually try to live our lives. You can stay on the love train, like the OJ said, just stay on the love train. It's hard, or you can get on the gravy train. But the thing with the gravy train is you just care about yourself. The gravy train is, I got mine, you better get yours. The love train says we're all in this together. And that's the way it is.
I kind of try to live life like loosely. I'm obviously, you got jobs and stuff, but I always try to I tell myself in the back of my head, be the change you want to be.
Amen. That's what
somebody
Gandhi
should be
said.
doing that, so I will do that like a little bit and then kind of
Yeah,
add to it.
yeah, yeah. If you want more love in the world, then you got to be more loving,
Yeah,
right?
pick up something you found on the ground, put it away.
Yeah, yeah. You have to be the change,
Sometimes I'm not
and
like that, but I try to be.
but yes, exactly. You at least try to be. But that's the change in consciousness. That's the change in consciousness that I think that we need. And I believe that. Hey, Mark, Mark
Mark
Eddy, that's
Eddie.
my man. I
Mark
believe
Eddie.
that. I really do believe that people are doing it. I know it's not going to be on Fox News. It's
Nope.
not going to be on MSNBC because that's not what they want. But James Baldwin said that the world turns by the love of a very few people. And there are good people out here. And there are people out here every day who are trying to be the best they can be, that they're trying to be good people. They're trying to love their neighbor. And so um, I see that. It's not just I believe it, I see
Mm-hmm.
it. So that gives me hope.
Yeah,
That
there's a
gives
lot of
me,
people out there right now trying to come together despite the obvious,
yeah,
you know, the mall just coming down in between us.
yes, yes, yes.
I think it kind of makes people. It almost gives me like a physical headache, frustration when I see it happening. I'm like they're only putting that out there to piss everybody off against each other.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. But see, that's where your spirituality has to come in. That's where your religion has to come in, because you have to see it for what it is. That this is just some noise to keep me distracted,
Mm-hmm.
and so and that's why whatever it is, I'm not believe in God. You don't believe in God. That's not really the point. It's just that whatever it is that keeps you focused and to keep you open, um, you need that, because if you don't, everything that you hear, everything that you see on the news, it will throw you off center, and you'll
Mm-hmm.
be living your life totally from confusion and fear. And I
Fear.
want you to live your life from confusion and fear. If I'm a leader, that I'm just looking out for myself, and there are good leaders out here, don't get me wrong, but you're easy to govern when you're afraid. It's easy for me to control you when you're uneducated. It's easy for me to control you when you're afraid. I can tell you anything.
Mm-hmm. They just found out that really works the last few years too.
This has been going on since human beings have been on the planet.
Yeah, they got them a good. They
Yeah,
got them a good sample size.
yeah. It's divide and conquer,
Mm-hmm.
because if we come together, it's game over.
And that's why they got to squash anybody free thinking. Lord knows they're probably going to stop this podcast right now.
Well, then we'll just
Guys
come
are getting a
back
little too
on.
woke
Then
on
we'll
me.
come back on tomorrow at 9 o'clock.
I'm going to operate from a illegal station out in the woods with some aluminum foil. What was that? What was that movie Kindergarten Cop, where that kid went out in the woods and climbed a tower with a?
Yeah, yeah. We may have to
Yeah,
do that.
it's not a tuma. Kindergarten
Yeah.
Cop.
So it's good. I mean, and this is what you're doing, and this is like a little ministry, and you got your congregation, and people are they know what's going on by their
Mm-hmm.
comments, and so you're changing lives. You're planting seeds, and this is what it's about.
It's funny you say that because I didn't watch the show to become that, but I've been watching the show on Netflix, How to Be a Cult Leader and How to Be a Dictator,
Yeah.
just to get like leadership, not leadership goals, like how to gain attention. I said it would be my luck. I'm accidentally create a cult that I didn't know it was out there. Like I
Yeah.
thought my fans are just listeners, and I go
Well,
to a convention.
that's how
Mm-hmm.
religions get started.
I go to a convention and I got like 50,000 people chanting my name and like cutting their arms. What in the hell? What?
Oh,
Just
oh,
Major Applewhite, Marshall Applewhite
yeah.
with his Nike shoes.
Wow. Well, but you do have a responsibility,
Yeah, you got to
and
bring it down.
you because you're putting these out on the airwaves, and you're probably being listened to by extraterrestrials. I mean, they listen, they monitor, they know what's going on. I mean, as well as our government does too. So
I
You
thoroughly
know, you
believe
might as
that
well
both of
give
those.
them a good show. Give them a good show.
I thoroughly believe that because this right here um, is my old dock to my laptop, USB dock,
Wow.
and I was gonna have Joey the UFO magnet on one day. And I don't know if you know who he is.
I don't, but I
I
like the
am,
name.
yeah, he just sees a lot of orbs and stuff. Like stuff seems just to happen around him. And the whole hour before we start, this thing has never messed up more than I could just reset it, reboot and it works. This thing went on the fritz like it was being put in a microwave
Hmm.
before that. I'm like Joey, some force doesn't want us to do this. I had to cancel, and it's
Really?
and I had to buy a whole new one. My whole new setup's new, and it's almost like he's like, yeah, it happens all the time before my shows. Stuff gets
I get that
ruined.
sometime when I'm on people's podcasts, and all of a sudden there'll be some technical difficulty right as
Yep.
you're at a good part or whatever. And I don't know, maybe it's coincidence, but you got to wonder sometimes, hey man, is someone not
I,
wanting this to be heard or what have
I
you?
mean, this thing was on the fritz slightly. I kept having to reboot it every couple of weeks, but it just took a nosedive that day, right
Yeah.
before him. And I got a contact. His name's Randy Bauer. He's commenting on he commented on the Facebook version of this podcast we're doing. But my first time we did a podcast with him, my entire internet went out. My laptop restarted itself, and
Wow.
he's surrounded by Bigfoot. And, they can do the same thing just
Yeah.
locally,
Yeah.
which apparently I don't think it's local. I think they can do. I think they can. I don't know. I don't know how it works. You don't know how it works, but I think they can. Whatever. Ruined my entire setup. I had to bring it all back. It took me 20 minutes. And the next time we did a show with him, it was on my friend's co-host channel. And he said, "Hey guys," he'll talk to him. "Hey guys, Randy, if you're here, make yourself known." His internet goes out. It takes him 20 minutes to get back.
Wow.
And that happened on
I mean,
demand.
yeah, how do you explain that? You can't.
And it's and I get kind of giddy about it because I think it just kind of proves something in some loose kind of way, but it is kind of frustrating if you're trying to do something and it goes out because that's what I do for a living. I'm in networking in
Ah,
IT.
so
In
you're
IT, so
IT, you're an
I'm
IT
like,
guy.
what the? I mean, it's broken. Why is it broke? And I think my building's haunted at work anyway, so it wouldn't shock me if it's breaking stuff there too. Yep. Anytime I have a medium on the show, I always ask them about my building,
Yeah.
and I've gotten like 6 different answers, so I don't know if they're good mediums or not. But
Right, 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 right. Yeah, you got six. Well, yeah, well, I don't know, brother.
those,
I don't
I get
know.
I get really mad about some mediums because I think I'm getting cold read, and I hate when I feel like I'm being cold read.
Hmm.
I'm like, no, this is not 1999 on a PBS special or a Sunday evening special. Like when they would say, as somebody in the audience, I feel the letter H. I feel the letter H.
Right, 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 right,
It's like
right,
my
right.
grandma's name was Harriet. Harriet says hello. I want to punch those people in the face. It's like stop doing that. You're ruining it for everybody.
Oh my God.
Yeah, scam artist, man.
Yeah, yeah. Oh wow.
We're sitting here at 50 minutes, and I think we've covered it all. And if you wanna wrap it up, I'm cool with it.
Well, I'll just say this: if people are interested
Yeah, say
in my,
how to get in touch with you. How to get it's in the
yeah, they
description, but
can.
tell us.
My email is michaeljscarter.com. My book's on Amazon. Just type in Reverend Michael J.S. Carter. And I don't use my blog as much, but if you, my website is michaeljscarter.com. And I will be appearing in Michigan at their UFO Con in Lake Houghton on September 21st
Hmm.
for that weekend. And hopefully the writer strike will be over soon and the actor strike and maybe
Yeah,
some more TV stuff will come along. In the meantime, I've just been enjoying a summer.
I think that's how I'm getting all these good guests lately. To be honest, I don't care.
Yeah,
One man's
yeah.
trash is another man's treasure, and so
No, it's all good. The more the merrier. And I just want to thank you for having me on the show. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in.
I'm on another show Wednesdays and Saturdays. I may pass it along to the host of that. He's a real good guy.
Okay.
But yeah, it's totally up to you. I'm just saying I may pass your name along. His name's
Yeah, well,
Glenn.
I don't mind. If I can do it, I'll do it.
Cool. Well, all right. Well, thanks everyone for watching. And I think I may start experimenting with this time slot again because everybody is like a vampire on a full moon. I've never
It's a
had
nice time slot. I mean, it's 10 o'clock. It's 11 o'clock on the East Coast where I am, but it's a Thursday night.
tomorrow's
For some
Friday.
people, the weekend starts on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
So
I forget about that.
it seems like it's a nice time slot.
I do forget about that. Let's get these going here. Here we go. So all right, let me make my loose production here. Let's play some going out music.
All right, brother. Have a good evening.
All right. Thank you very much. And I'll be in touch for sure. That was a really good time, and thanks for coming on, man.
All right, brother. Have a good weekend.
All right, see you.